Hey folks, how you doing? Hopefully you can hear everything okay. Who was that texting me at this time in the morning? Gee whiz. Who was it? Hopefully it's a gig. It's 9:30 a.m. Cheers, folks. I have a cup of coffee because beer would be just wrong at this time in the morning. I wanted to do it on. I've been trying to move these live streams to Monday mornings. I think it works better to kind of for the timing for everyone else. Most of my viewers are usually in the US, UK, Europe, places like that, bits of Asia, and so the timing is better for me to do morning in New Zealand and late at night over there. Doesn't work great for my Kiwi viewers, but that's how it goes. Had a gig on Saturday where I played solo guitar. It was myself and Ellen, what's her name? Vera Allen, a really great kind of pop rock, folky kind of songwriter-y person with her band. They were really good. I really enjoyed them. And I played a solo set beforehand, which was really interesting because it's not something I do very often. And I took this guitar. In fact, pretty much the same setup you're hearing now. And I put a lot of work into it. You know, that's not something I do very often. So I thought, well, if I'm going to play a solo set, I'm going all in on this. So I kind of worked on a lot of tunes, and I still wanted to improvise. I didn't want it to be like, okay, I'm going to go out and I'll play my set and be done. Because that's not me. I'm an improviser. That's what I do. And so I wanted to be geared up for that. And so I went out there with a plan. I had a set of songs, and the idea kind of talking with the audience and kind of taking them through what I'm going to do. And it worked really well. They seemed to really like it, and it was really. I want to bring that camera a little closer. Is that better? There we go. What do you think of the new studio couch over there? It's nice to have some color in the studio. It's not very straight, is it? Let's get that camera straight so you don't feel a bit wonky. And that's a little better. It's still very wide. It's wide angle, but yeah. So played solo, and a bunch of friends come to the gig, so that was nice. And it's a real challenge playing solo. When you play solo, you gotta. There's so many factors to consider, right? Melody, chords, bass line, all that kind of stuff. And also too, like dynamics and stuff. Dynamics is really powerful, and a lot of musicians don't think about dynamics, right? If I play a phrase like even within the way I played that, there are dynamics in it, right? It's not just all flat. It's got da 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 da. But I can also go. Okay. Hit it hard, like lots of different ways. Hey, let me know in the chat. Is everyone hearing everything okay? I'm using a different setup than I normally use. I normally do stuff on my phone. This is on my computer. I've been ramping up the tech on how I kind of do this stuff. As you can probably see over there, I have my 2 cameras set up that I use for now doing videos. When I was doing daily videos, I was doing them all on my phone. A lot of people were surprised to hear that. I was talking to Jens Larsen, a friend of mine. If you don't know Jens, go and check out his YouTube channel. It's fantastic. He's really great. But I was talking to him about it. I told him I did it all on my phone. He's like, what? You do it on your phone? I'm like, yeah. So what I'd do is I'd set up my phone, I'd plug in an audio interface via an adapter. The audio interface is over there. It's a Mackie Big Knob, which is a 6-channel interface. basically using it as a mixer. And I have my guitar going into there, my voice going into there, and then backing tracks, which is something I haven't figured out how to do with this setup yet, but I will. And then I have a lighting rig, which you probably can't see, but there's a light there, there's another one there, and there's another one over there. Eventually, I want to have them all mounted on the roof so I can come in and just flick a switch and they all turn on. That would be super cool. But yeah, and that's sort of how I did it. So, because the idea being with daily videos, it has to be quick. If it's not quick, I'm just not going to get time to do it. So I found that, like now that I'm not doing daily videos because, it got too much, it got full on, that I actually want to do more production with it. Like that's one of the key things why I stopped doing it, because if I'm doing them quickly, I don't have time to do massive edits. I don't have time to kind of do the full production. Even something like taking an SD card out of a camera, putting it into your computer and waiting for it to transfer takes time. You got a 15, 20 gigabyte file, because, record everything in 4K, then you're sort of waiting for 10 minutes and you can't do anything. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But I'm much preferring the quality. Like the first time I got the real cameras out again and did some filming, I was like, yeah, it's just so much better. So much better. And actually the audio is better. Running through that little Mackie mixer, it's okay. I did have a mic preamp for this mic, which makes a huge difference. It's a Black Lion B173. It's basically a Neve 1073 clone, and they sound pretty good. But I found that running straight into my proper setup means that I can actually mix. So I'll do things like maybe add a little bit of reverb to the guitar, because I have reverb on it here. But sometimes afterwards I'll listen back and go, oh, that just needs more reverb. So I'll put like a more of a hall sound on it. Cheers, everybody. I'll put a hall sound on it, or maybe a little bit of EQ to kind of make it bigger or smaller or whatever it particularly needs. Balance between the voice. Whereas, when I was doing the daily videos on my phone, it's all recorded into my phone. It has to be right. And I couldn't tell you how many times I'd set up and I'd realize that, the guitar channel was coming through to my in-ears, but not to the phone, not being recorded. So I have to do the same thing again, which was a frustrating thing. So I'm enjoying this setup. Can't stand delays out of tune. At a time, I should say. Not that time. I warmed up today. Ooh. It's funny when you notice it when you go to play something like that, and it's sort of like it's not doing what it wants to do. The other thing I notice here too is because my computer's right there, just what you're seeing through, get a lot of hum. As soon as I do that, right? Any questions, people? So that was one of the tunes that I played on Saturday for that solo gig. And my preparation for stuff like that is usually what I do is I go and I learn the melody by itself, right? Then I want to learn it down an octave. It's sort of one of those things that, you want to learn it in multiple places, learn it with chords, all that kind of stuff. I want to learn it with alternate chords, all those sort of things so that I'm prepared to go. Hey, Keith, how you doing? He says, hope you're well. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Hope you are too. Can you cover my question from episode 375? Sure. You said thinking C7 alt leading to the F minor chords. Many thanks. Okay, so I'm not particularly familiar with what episode 375 was about. But I think if you're talking about C7 alt, we're talking about this, right? Right? Thanks for the question too, Keith. This is great. Pardon me. So C7 altered. Basically, what an altered chord is it means an alteration to the ninth and an alteration to the fifth, right? So in this case, sharp 5, but also flat 9, sharp 9, one of the two, or it could be flat 5, flat 9, flat 5, sharp 9, whichever, but two alterations, right? Just different from just a flat 9 chord, but they're going to an F minor. And I think probably what is likely talking about was going like how to get between those 2 points, right? It's such a strong movement in music, and my favorite for that is the altered scale, which the altered scale is basically the melodic minor, but think up a step from where you are. So if we're in C and we want C altered, what we do is we move up one step to D flat, up a semitone, and we play the melodic minor scale. Now, the melodic minor scale, if you're not really sure what it is, just think a major scale, but instead of having the major third, flatten it and have the minor third. So it's a major scale but with a flat third. But we're down a semitone. Now, the key thing to that, to making it work, is we play that over the top of the C7 chord, and then we resolve when we get to the F minor chord to F minor. Could be Dorian like that, could be Aeolian. Probably more likely Aeolian. So the key to making things resolve is making sure you land on beat 1, right? Because that's the resolving beat, or beat 3, but beat 1 probably when you're starting, right? And make sure you're getting that C7 altered sound, or D flat melodic minor over C, right? C altered scale, and that you're weaving through that sound and that you resolve, right? If you don't resolve correctly, everything sounds like wrong notes. That the resolution, really, I can't hit home enough about that. That is the key point. See, there's my resolution. C7 altered. There's my resolution, right? And you see that it kind of creates this. It's essentially what it is tension and release, if you look at it in its simplest way, right? C7 altered creates tension, F minor resolves it, if we're thinking that stuff. Now, an interesting thing happens is in music, especially in the music I play, you don't necessarily even have to have the C7 chord there to play it, right? The groove could be just this. Okay. Could just be that, and I play. Right, I'm kind of being a little naughty there and checking in a couple of other things, but I hope that makes sense. But that's often what I do, is imply chord changes. And the reason I imply them is it just adds a bit of extra color to what's going on, right? And the thing with that as well is I find with implied chord changes, if you start that way. Start kind of with the more outside sounds. It just doesn't make sense, right? You've got to establish the key before you sort of add in the things that aren't really in the key, like implied chord changes or tensions, tritone subs, anything like that you might know. Hope that helps, Keith. Some guy says implied diminished. Yeah, I do the same thing with diminished. You probably heard it in the middle of that C7 altered. Because within that scale is actually a diminished scale. So like... which is more of a flat 9 thing, but I definitely implied the diminished as well. And when you think about diminished, they're perfect for that, because what is a diminished? It's a passing chord, right? It's designed to get you from one place to another. That's its purpose, right? So like E diminished to F minor instead of the C. I gotta say, I love having tremolo again on guitars. It's the tremolo wasn't on this guitar last night. I took it out of my gig bag. I was doing some practice and working on stuff, and then this morning I grabbed the guitar and I was like, I'm gonna go and get the tremolo. I really want the tremolo. It's become kind of a part of my sound, I think. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to put up with the buzzing. There's not much I can do about that, other than face away from my computer, because the screen's right here. Hope you can hear everything okay. Do let me know if you can't. Do let me know if you can. Oh, some guy says, I love that guitar. It's PRS on steroids. Yeah, me too, man. I dig this guitar, and I've been playing this a lot lately, because one thing I like about this guitar, it's not the easiest guitar to play, which I know goes against what a lot of Porritt Smiths are kind of very easy to play. But this is kind of a bit of it's not the easiest. Maybe it needs new frets or something. I don't know. It's also had the finish stripped off the neck, which I don't particularly like. I much prefer a little bit of lacquer, and I probably will get that refinished. I find it, if it's completely raw wood like that, it just grips a little more. Whereas as soon as you put your finger on there, you can feel it smooth. It sort of slides, I guess. It's really smooth. The neck is like ridiculously smooth, but just a little bit of grip. But I do like this guitar because I don't see other people playing one. And that's kind of partly why I was like, yeah. And you talk about it being its PRS on steroids. I kind of see this guitar as a Strat on steroids, right? I mean, it's a lot like a Strat. And the crazy thing with it is, if I turn the volume down, which I often do, because it's got a treble bleed on it, what essentially is happening is it's turning down the bass, right? And so I can thin out the P90s and make them sound even more like a Strat, and that works. Some guy says I have a raw Warmouth neck for my Bender Tally. Yeah, I mean, some people really like raw necks, and that was an interesting thing about the NAMM show this year. That's a trend that's happening with guitars. Many manufacturers are now stripping the wood back to raw. People seem to like that. And the relic thing, relicking guitars and, raw, not necessarily completely raw, but more of a raw feel on the neck seem to be pretty common. Now, I didn't see that at Sir, although I did see Sir with a few guitars that had dings and stuff in them, and I thought, oh. Lee Jackson says, hey, Nick, do you add a surcharge when you use a lot of altered notes? Well, I get paid by the note, so that's kind of how I work. You see, that's just one tone. Just use the hum because of the computer, like I mentioned. Crazy thing with P90s too is those in-between settings really do sound stratty, right? So I'm off to Nelson this weekend. I'm playing with the Christchurch Symphony. We got 4 singers and pop singers. They call it opera in the park, but it's really, the opera is the first part, and then they basically put on a pop show for everyone, which is what they really want. But I'm going to take this guitar down, so this is partly why I've been playing it so much. Good morning, everyone. Cheers to a cup of coffee. I love coffee. Some guy says, what a gift you have. Oh, thank you very much. It's very kind. We were talking about that the other day, actually. So we were talking about it with a friend of mine about talent and what talent means. And he was saying, oh, you know, certain person was very talented or something. And I said, well, maybe. I think you have to have talent to start with, right? You know, if you haven't got some natural ability, there's only so far you're going to go. But then it really comes down to hard work, right? You know, that's really the key, I think. More than anything, because I've seen loads of talented musicians who go nowhere with their careers in music. Singers, guitar players, whoever, who, you know, some people that you just go, man, that person's really got it. But they don't put in the hard work, and they don't kind of connect, and they don't kind of build it, and they don't have that drive to do it, you know. I remember seeing a thing of Andy Wood recently. Do you guys all know Andy Wood, who he is? Really great guitar player. I think he's based in Nashville. I've met Andy a couple of times. He's a nice chap. Through mutual friends, Errol Posen and Mark Lettieri and guys like that we all know each other. So, but Andy, he was saying that one thing with him is that he will outwork anyone. And I think he was talking about himself. Maybe he was talking about someone else, but he said something along those lines, and it made me think that's the key, right? And you know, and that's the way I kind of look at myself too. You know, I mean, I've obviously got some natural ability, or I wouldn't have been able to have a career at this, but I worked really hard too. And that's not to diminish that at all. You know, I practice a lot. I wish I could just pick it up and do it. Like I said, this guitar is not the easiest to play. It's a quarter sawn neck, which I think is part of it. I remember talking to my buddy Warren Mendonza about this, that, you know, his quarter sawn neck guitars that he's got definitely are harder to play. He's got a couple of those Eric Johnson guitars, which are really good. Those are some of the best Strats I've ever played. But the quarter sawn neck, there's no flex or movement in it. It's really solid, which you think is a really good thing, and it is. But it also means that they're kind of harder to play. Like, there's more tension on it. I'd describe this guitar as feeling like 11s on it when it has 10s on it. Maybe it's the quarter sawn neck. There's less movement, you know, like with that kind of stuff. I don't know. It possibly needs a refret. The frets are they're quite wide. I'd call them medium jumbos, but to me they're looking a little flat on the top. Probably needs a recrown or a refret. I mean, it was 2001 this was made. yeah, thanks, some guy. That's really nice of you to say. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with the tone control in this yet. I do find that it doesn't work quite like I want it to. See, between 10 and 6 there's nothing, and then it all happens between 0 and 2. Feels weird playing that sort of music on this guitar, but it doesn't inspire me to want to play that sort of stuff on this sort of sound, especially not with those delays too. I find them kind of distracting in a jazz context, but I do like having delay. And the interesting thing is, a delay like that, you don't even hear that when you're in a band. It sort of just becomes part of the sound. So cheers, everyone. It's like reverb, you know, when you hear a reverb in a mix, it's sort of the guitar just, you know when it's not there, but once it's blended, it's sort of all, yeah, it becomes part of the tone. Some guy says, my musical education has been informal after 12th grade. I think a lot of it is like that for a lot of us, right? Like, I've studied with some really great musicians and gone away with stuff like that. But when I think about the gains I've made the most as a player, it's been just from me sitting there slogging away at it, right? Those people definitely opened doors for me. I think that was a really important thing. I'm just going to tune up again. They definitely opened up doors for me, and they and what I mean by that is there's things that I probably would have discovered anyway, but they saved me a whole lot of time on it, right? Like, I remember my guitar teacher showing me 6th, 9th chords, these things, right? So 6th and a 9th, 1, 3, 6, 9, 5. Just showed me that one voicing. I really like it, especially for like Brazilian stuff, like, you know, the girl from Ipanema, for example. Works really well for that. It's a little different from, it's kind of, it's like a little less pretty than the major 9th chord, you know, and so, and in a good way, it's like a more stable sound, I guess you could say. But he showed me that one chord, and what sped it up is I probably would have figured that out eventually anyway, but he kind of got me started, and I thought, well, what are the inversions of it? So I figured out that's the next one, that's the next one. It's a hard one to get the 5th in. And I use those all the time, right? Like, they're a big part of my playing. And then, of course, from there, I thought, well, how do I play the minor? I almost never use that one, but right. Some of them aren't that practical to play, like this one. And it just doesn't sound good to have. Usually with chords, the flat 9 interval is in a void within chords. I don't mean flat 9 chords, I mean flat 9 interval. So there we have, you know, it's an interval of a flat 9th within the chord, and it just doesn't sound good, does it? So do that the other way around. Major 7th. Works great, but that would change the whole structure of the chord. So, but that was just something that someone showed me, and then I figured it, took it and ran with it and figured it out. And that's a lot of how my playing's kind of come about. Yeah. So informal learning. And probably the best thing I've done, like, period, I think, is learning tunes. It really is. The more tunes you know, the better. I remember sitting down and learning the whole entire Surfing with the Alien album, Joe Satriani, when I was a teenager. And that was one of the best things I did, you know. You know, I can't even remember how a lot of that stuff goes, but what was that called? Something like that. Whatever it is, it's been so long. But remember learning that. See if I can remember this. You know, so I haven't played that for 20 plus years, but that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And I think learning that stuff just did wonders for my playing. And then the same thing with a whole lot of Schofield stuff. Although before that I did George Benson. He was someone I was right into, and I kind of went down the road of learning a lot of George Benson. So much so that when I was at music school, they used to call me the White George Benson because I was so much into it, you know. If you were, some guy says, if you were playing Joe Satriani as a kid, you were born an ace. Yeah, well, that was the thing. We, as teenagers, as I started playing guitar when I was 10, I'd been playing piano before that. But I started playing guitar when I was 10, and I sort of discovered Satch about breezing. No, that was affirmation, but breezing is. Right, I remember learning breezing as well, like a whole heap of Benson stuff, and not just like the pop stuff. I did learn a lot of stuff from Cookbook. That's my favorite George Benson album was Cookbook. Blue Benson's really great too. But yeah, we were intrigued by the stuff that was Satch, Steve Vai. I remember learning a whole lot of Passion and Warfare. That's a great album. You know, stuff like that. And the thing is with that stuff, when I remember learning it back then, I didn't really even know what any of it really was. I hadn't analyzed. I just learned how to play it and figured it out. It was kind of the beginnings of tab, although there wasn't a lot of tab around. I could read notation a little bit as well, so I'd get notations on. It wasn't really online, but books that people would have and whatever, and mostly using your ear because that's what you had to do. But I think that was great. But I think learning tunes has probably been the best thing I've ever done to work on my playing, for sure. And then trying to play along with those recordings. I could never do this chord. That would be really easy on a short scale, Nick. You know what I mean? Like a 24-inch scale or something. And so nowadays, like, my goals with music are a little different than what they were back. I talked about being a teenager and learning all that stuff. My goals now are really about like perfecting stuff. So to me, it's like I probably work on my rhythm more than anything else. I'll put a loop on. I use the Drum Genius app. I'm sure you all know that one, and if you don't, you should. It's really good. Where's my apps? There we go. This one. And so like last night, I put on this. Hopefully you can hear this little calypso groove. This calypso one. Let's get that in time. And that's the sort of thing that I'll just spend hours kind of doing. I haven't warmed up today, so I can feel like my fingers are not doing what it's 10 a.m. in the morning. So I started this about 9:30, I think it was, 1:45. Yeah, and fingers aren't working yet. I usually prefer to warm up before I play, but I didn't have any time. Some guy says timing is one of my issues. Yeah, I think for most musicians it is, and some people ignore it, and other people work on it. And that's the thing. That's probably what I work on more than anything. And if I'm playing something like that and I can find there's an issue with something, that's the bit I'll drill down on, and I'll put the click on, and I'll just kind of drill down on until I got it. Are you using chromatics there? In some places, yeah. But I'm also just trying to play the chord changes. Like, right, you have this to an A7 chord, right? So that has that C sharp in it. So I try and make a point of making it. There's lots of different ways you can view those chords. Some people view it as, if you want to view it like that, that's totally cool. But sometimes I'll kind of play the diminished off it, off the second chord. Right, so I'm kind of playing the chord changes, but I mean, I'm always putting in a couple of notes here and there. It's kind of what I do. But the point of that is I'm trying to like I'm working on my rhythm doing that stuff. And the thing is, I think a lot of times with guitar players is they might work on their rhythm guitar and they'll work on something like, in fact, let's get rid of that delay. It's super annoying. They'll do a groove like that, and then when they go in their solo, they don't play rhythm at all. On the opposite, when I play soloing, I want to have rhythm in it, right? So something like that, I might work on going. You know what I mean? I'm trying to make my soloing parts feel the same kind of way as the rhythm parts do. So yeah, that's something I work on a lot. So yeah, cheers everyone. Because to me, it's like the players that I most like nowadays, it's usually to do with how they play rhythm more than anything else. Like Charlie Hunter. You know, I was listening to Charlie Hunter last night. That dude is a badass. He can really play. And so when I hear someone like him play, it's the rhythm that gets me. This seems to jam up for some reason. I don't know why. These strap locks are different ones than I normally buy. They're not particularly great. Anyway, but yeah, Charlie Hunter, Mark Lettieri, people like that, Rob Harris, you know, Ella Feingold. Who else is there that I've been listening to lately? I heard the Fearless Flyers when I was in Los Angeles. It was fantastic, man. Nate Smith just kills me. I'm inspired by Nate Smith more than probably 90% of guitar players because of the way that guy plays rhythm, the feel. I mean, for me, he's probably the ultimate drummer, right? I'd love to work with him sometime, do a record with him or something, because it's like when I hear Nate Smith play, it's the groove sits where I want it to sit. Do you know what I mean? And not only that, he can play badass backbeats, but he can swing his ass off as well. And that's something that's pretty rare. You know, and I remember talking to Joe LaBarbera about that when he was in New Zealand, and like, because, you know, obviously he's taught a lot of really great players and great player himself. But I was like, why is it so difficult for a drummer to kind of play swing and then go to play backbeat? Because obviously he's done both, right? Although more known as a swing player for his stuff with Bill Evans and stuff. And he was saying, like, it's a completely different approach to how you approach the instrument. When you think about swing, it's coming from the ride cymbal, isn't it? It's up here. It's cymbal based, you know, and the bass drum and the kick drum are used as accents. Whereas like a funk thing or a backbeat thing of some sort, it's kick snare driven, not cymbal driven, right? And that kind of, I think, is why. It's also too the difference between playing string and swing and straight fills. You know, if you start working on swing all the time and that's all you do is just play swing, then playing the straighter eighth fills are not that easy for you, right? And so drummers that focus on playing jazz stuff, you know, they obviously focus on swing more than anything. And even when they play straight, you tell when someone's a jazz drummer playing straight fills because the straight feel still has a little bit of swing about it. I have played with some drummers that can do both, though. I mean, Terry Gully is one. That guy can play anything, you know, and a great backbeat. Although his backbeat stuff still sounds like a jazz guy playing backbeat. Dave Weckl is someone who definitely can play both. Weckl's, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Weckl's underrated in certain areas of his playing. Everybody knows the chops, right? And so Weckl's highly rated as a chops player, right? He's got ridiculous chops. But I would go out on a limb and say that his groove is just fantastic. Like the way it feels when he just even plays a simple backbeat is ridiculous. Ridiculously good. And he's not really known as a groove player, but he really can groove. You know what I mean? I mean, sure, you see all the stunts and the flashy stuff, but he's fantastic at that, at grooving. You know what I mean? Just great pocket, great time, all the stuff I love, right? I mean, Joe LaBarbera can play both too. One of the best I've heard at both is John Riley. I have met Nate before. I met him on a separate trip to LA. We went out and saw the Dice Trio, which is Adam Rogers, Fema Efron, and Nate Smith playing the Hendrixy style trio, and it was fantastic. It was a little club called the Blue Whale that unfortunately is no longer there. That was one of my favorite Los Angeles clubs, and they played loud, right? You know, I get shit for playing loud, and I'm like, man, come on, like that's a tiny little club, and Adam Rogers had like a Marshall head and a 2x12 cab or a 1x12, whatever it was, and he cranked it with a Strat through it. Excuse me, going for that Hendrixy type stuff. And it was awesome. It was so great. I really love that gig. They played super dynamic. The tones were great. The groove, the power of it. And so I got to meet Nate afterwards because I know Adam a little bit. So that was nice. And they know some Jonathan Crayford, a really great Kiwi piano player. So we got talking. But yeah, so I'd like to play with Nate one day. Some guy says maintaining the groove at all costs. Yeah, totally. This rhythm is uncompromising. I don't know who that is. Jun Yamagata Gishi. I don't know who that is. I have to check him out. Yeah, that's where it's at, right? Groove, you know, like the groove is the thing. Yeah, so a lot of the gig this weekend, I mentioned I'm off to Christchurch. We rehearse in Christchurch for a day, and then we go to Nelson to play the opera in the park. And we rehearse in Nelson as well, I think, in the venue, something like that. But it's full orchestra. We have 4 singers. We've got Annie Crummer, Diva Mahal, Betty Ann Monga, who was the singer in Arija, and then Naomi Ferguson, who's from Christchurch, and she's fantastic too. So 4 killer singers, orchestra, rhythm section. And it's a big gig. It's an outdoor gig, so they have a lot of people turn up. Last time I did it, at least they had about 20,000. I think that's what the capacity of the sports field is. That's kind of what they're looking at. So I'm going to take this down. They've hired me a Fender Twin, both the rehearsal in Christchurch and for the gig, which is interesting because I haven't really used a Twin in a long time. So I'll take my Fractal, and probably what I'm going to do is go front of house direct out of the Fractal FM3, which is what you're hearing now. And that kind of tone. And then I will run to the Fender Twin, and probably I've set up a preset that's the exact same thing, but with no cab out of output 2, and no cabinet and no amp modeling, and that way I can just run into the front of the Fender. It sort of bypasses it at that point. Run into the Fender, and I found that if you crank the mid-range up, turn the treble down, and set the bass accordingly, they can kind of get you a half-ass guitar tone. It's not great, but you know, at least it works running into the front of an amp. Those amps don't have an effects return, otherwise that would be ideal, because then I just keep the amp modeling and all that stuff on and just go into the effects return. So you're really only using the power stage and the speakers. Oh, Daniel says, do you ever listen back to performances of yourself and not like what you hear? By the way, you sound amazing, man. All the time. I'm using this little my camera here is a DJI Osmo Action. I have 2 of them, and on the wall cabinet over there I have a whole heap of GoPros that I've used over the years. I always take one of these cameras, usually the Action 5, wherever it is. I think it's in my gig bag back there, and I film most gigs now. I didn't film the gig in the weekend, mostly because it's a solo gig, which isn't something I really typically do. And I thought, gee, I don't know if I really want to like beat up on myself just yet with that something different. Maybe if I'd done a few of them, I might. But anyway, I film most gigs now, and I watch it back, and I try and watch it back as soon as possible, because I find if I leave too much time, my perspective of things changes. You know, because other things have entered my mind. My thought process is different. So when it's fresh, it's quite important. And I listen back to it, and I would say many times there's stuff I think that were better than I thought they were, and many times stuff that didn't work. And so the whole thing of it, the reason for watching is not to boost my ego, because I don't think that helps at all. My whole point of watching it back is to like edit what I do. So for example, if maybe I played a chord in a certain kind of way in a certain kind of place, and it just didn't work. Well, now I know that didn't work. Take it out of my playing. Don't do that again. So the next time I get to that point in music, be it the same song or a similar song that has the same thing, I'll do something else at that point. And that's the thing. I'm like constantly editing what I'm doing to try and improve it. And you know, seems to be working. I feel like I'm getting better, but slowly. It's just so much to learn always. I think that's the thing. If you keep at this long enough, you'll figure it out. And that's typically all I've done. I mean, there's so many things I don't know about music, and I know I do what I do, right? But even something like, there was this band that was, when I did the solo gig on Saturday, and this band played after me, Vera Allen. Sort of an indie pop rock type stuff, do you know what I mean? And I thought, how would I get on playing in a band like that? Now, I could do it. That's not the question. But would I do it authentically the way the guitar players in that band did? Because there was 2 people playing guitar, 3 people playing guitar. One of the guitar players played keyboard as well. And I thought, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably put too many chords in. I'd probably have the wrong kind of sound, all those sort of things. So I'd have to learn how to play that kind of way. Like some of the guitar parts were things like they'd just go. And that might be it, but maybe not even with that sound, more like. Maybe more that kind of sound. And so, that's a different way of playing. And I was thinking about that. My buddy Stan Bicknell just auditioned for Primus. He didn't get the gig, but he got through to the finals on it. So I think they got down to the final 6 or something out of thousands who entered. But he got down to the final 6, got to go and play with them in Los Angeles. I didn't get the gig. They gave it to another guy, but, with some killer players in that final 6, I believe. Stan's amazing. But anyway, Stan auditioned for that. And I thought, the last audition I heard about for a guitar player was for the Smashing Pumpkins, right? And I had a couple of people say, "Oh, you should just go for it." And I was like, "Yeah, but I don't know that I really play that kind of music in that kind of way, right?" Now, the person who got that gig, I believe, was probably suited to playing that sort of music, because you do what you do, right? I don't really hear many auditions for guitar. Some guy says neuroscientists are measuring the brainwaves of musicians playing metal and classical. Interesting. I wonder why they picked those 2 genres. Maybe it's because those genres are highly technical. Yeah, I'd hate to think what would be going through my brain when I play. How quickly can I drink this coffee? Because it is 20 past 10 in the morning, which for me is the middle of the night. I'm not a morning person, as you can probably tell. Years of doing gigs at night. That's my world. I just put new strings on this last night. I like to change my strings about at least 3 or 4 days before I have to do anything. So this, I'll be taking this guitar to Nelson, but we rehearse on Thursday. So I thought if I changed them last night, it's got 3 or 4 days to sort of break in and settle in. The last strings have been on there for ages, and they actually seem fine. I use Elixir 10 to 46 at the moment on this. Like I said, this sort of feels like 11s. I'd describe this as feeling like 11 to 49s feel on my SCO guitar or something like that. Like it feels heavier than it actually is, for a variety of reasons. But I like to change the strings a little bit, just get them used to kind of settling in, because I find once they settle in, they usually stay there. This guitar holds root tuning really well. I mean, that's a non-locking tremolo, and I did, quite a... Still in tune. And I remember seeing a thing of Tom Bukovac talking about that, and he reckons that most of the issues with guitars is in the nut, and I totally agree with that. These tuners were changed by someone. You can see their showlers. There's the serial number, but you can see the holes where the old tuners were. Hopefully, maybe not. Oh, there you go. You can see it along there where the old tuners were. Because I was told at the time that it was the tuners that were stopping it from staying in tune. So I went from locking tuners to non-locking tuners. I had the bridge blocked off, so it was like a hardtail, and it seemed to be fine. But I don't know that it was that. I think it was the strings. Then there was a batch of strings. I won't say which brand, but they weren't Elixirs that I was using at the time. But I think the issue was that the strings there was kind of a bad batch of them, because I remember reading about it online that other people were having similar issues with that particular brand. So I switched to another brand and seemed to fix it. But meanwhile, the tuners have been changed. Parts have been lost, so I couldn't put them back. But these actually shuttlers seem to be very desirable. But it holds tuning really well. Non-locking tuners, and I mean, most of the time when I'm using the tremolo, it's just... Daniel says, are you familiar with Frank Gambale's course called Target Tones? No, I'm not. No. It's a pretty good course, but definitely takes a lot of work for beginners. I totally agree with the whole principle of target tones. That's a lot of how I play. Like, I'm definitely looking for what the target tones against chords are. So it sounds like something that I'd be right into. Yeah, it's a lot of how I play. I have to go in about 5 minutes, folks. I'm afraid I got to teach a lesson this morning. Beginning of last year, I started taking on a few students. So I've got I teach on Mondays primarily. I have 2 students tonight, and then I have I do occasional lessons in between, like someone wants a one-off. So I've got someone come around today for a lesson, so that'll be fun. Usually they're more online, the occasional lessons, but this person lives in Wellington, so yeah. But the 2 guitar students I teach regularly, they're guns. They're really playing great. All right, folks, I'm going to have to go. Hey, thanks so much for joining me. Yeah, I hope you're liking the look of the new look of the studio. I'm sort of been experimenting with stuff. The couch is here to stay now. Hey, Owen, how you doing? And the new kind of format I'm doing, 2 videos a week, a weekday one, a weekend one. Sometimes I'm thinking Wednesday, maybe even Thursday morning release, and then Saturday afternoon New Zealand time, which I think is Friday for a lot of people. Live stream on Monday morning. That sort of splits up the week a bit, and then some shorts in between. So let me know if there's any topics you think I should cover, but otherwise I'll see you soon. Hey, thanks so much. Take care. Cheers.